Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Amanda Barr, and I cannot wait to dive into our show today. We've got an incredible shifter with us. And if you are dealing with depression or going through things or just struggling and not sure what the next best step is, keep listening all the way to the end. I'm sure you're going to be inspired, touched in so many different ways. I have Linda Bagwu. She's an alignment coach with Brand by Being and helps women, executives, and founders move beyond the myth of not enough to do more with less stress. Come on now. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to dive in. I mean, that's an alignment coach helping women. How did you get to where you are today? Maybe just take us a little bit down memory lane.
Okay, so I've had quite the journey. I didn't think I would be here. I actually resisted it for a while. So it's quite interesting that I'm here doing what I'm doing and loving it. But I started my growth journey as a child. My mum introduced me to meditation at 11 years old and told us that the kingdom of God exists within us and the way to access it is through silence. So I had that as a spiritual foundation. We meditated every single day before we left the house, before we ate, before we went to sleep. And we had quiet days every Sunday where we weren't allowed to talk until 12 p.m. In the afternoon. So it really taught us to reflect. And she would always tell us to turn within whenever we needed answers. So we grew sort of self-reliance in that way. As a result, there was a bit of conflict moving forward. I had all of this knowledge on the spiritual side. And then later in my life, just because of the role I played in my family, I felt like I had two personalities. One side of me, I'd be really present, really focused, really trusting that I could manifest whatever I want. And then I would flip into this insecure, fearful, angry, controlling personality. I was not really a nice person to be around. And I would say to my mom, how come I'm like this sometimes and like this other times? And she would say, turn within. And then I hit my rock bottom when I was 25. A few things happened at the same time. I was engaged to be married and canceled that probably 4 months before the wedding day. I got an ultimatum from a startup I was a partner with, and the founding partner told me that I should keep my opinions to myself or leave. And that seemed like it wasn't a choice. It was a no-brainer. And I made the decisions that I was never going to work for anyone and give them that power over me again. And then the third thing that happened was that I moved in with my mum, and those situations kind of led to me falling into a depression. And depression was not something I enjoyed. No one enjoys it, but it was something I thought I wasn't the candidate for because I was strong and independent and successful, and depression was only for weak people. And so when it hit me, I was like, oh, this thing isn't like a choice. It's a chemical imbalance. And I was determined to figure out what had led to that. And that's when my transformational journey began. I started learning about, well, after a couple of suicide attempts and leaving my mum's house and moving into my car and being homeless for a few weeks, I was working with a coach and started understanding the mind and how it works and all of the limiting beliefs I had created that had led to those personality traits that were not serving me anymore. And I went to work at just dispelling them and releasing them. And it's still an ongoing process, but it was the biggest. Whenever I tell people I was depressed and suicidal, they usually are shocked, but I'm like, it's the best thing that happened to me, because had it not been for that, I probably would have been so attached to my identity that I would have continued with ways of being that were not serving me. So through that process of unbecoming, I started my business from my car and grew it to a multi-million-pound business, and found that I was indirectly coaching my staff and my employees. And I didn't know, like one of my employees, she fell into depression about a month after working in the startup. It was the first startup environment that she had. She had a lot of stress, and I was excited. And I was like, this is great. And she was like, what are you talking about? She was crying. And I said, you're going to do everything I tell you to do, right? Because I remembered that I was ready to take on whatever my coach told me, because I was at that rock bottom. And she said yes. And within 2 weeks, she felt better. her, and I'm still in touch with her. She's never been depressed ever since. So things like that started happening in the company. So I didn't realize I was coaching, and I was told by the coaches I was working with that I should consider coaching. And I was like, I've been looking after my family all my life, and now you want me to go and hire strangers to look after? Why would I do that to myself? But yeah, I eventually gave in, and the rest is history, and that's how I got to where I am now.
Wow. I mean, wow. Right? For those listening, I hope you just go back and listen. Like, there's so much in there, your life, your journey. And I'm so glad you're here today. And thank you for sharing. Some people don't share some of those hard rock bottom, but I love that you've transformed that over to, hey, depression was the best time, because that's when I was able to change and transform. And I mean, coming from just that place, I have so many questions, but where do you go from there? Because I guess I would like to know, because you're now coaching and you've gone through this transition, and it's you said you resisted it. Maybe there are some listening. I'd love to hear about, how did you work through this resistance? Because you were in that state, you healed yourself and healing yourself, and you've helped others, and then it came up that, hey, maybe I should do this for others, and you resisted. What was going through your world at that time?
So there was one moment, I guess it's called like a quarter life crisis now. It's got a term. When I was 30, I had this business that was growing. All of my mentors were saying this is a time to double down. And I just woke up and I was just dead inside. And I didn't care about the job. I wasn't depressed, but I wasn't motivated. I was just in this lull state. And it continued for about a year and a half. And I didn't realize, but what had happened was I had done so much work on myself that I created the capacity within me to help others. I needed something more, rather than the money, which the business is making money, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. I didn't feel like I was making enough of a difference. And I think that that's the tipping point for people, that usually we're in survival mode, and we're trying to survive and trying to fulfill our insecurities, and are looking for validation through our career. And once we get all of those things, it's like, then, and now what? And I had an early life crisis, went to India for a month to figure out what was wrong with me, did the typical crisis thing to do. And after being in the meditation retreat, I realized that my why was to make money to take care of my family. And now that my siblings were older and working for themselves, my why had died, and I didn't know who I was and what I wanted to do. And after I went to an event called AFES, it's a Mind Valley event that brings together like heart-led entrepreneurs. And I saw all of these people making a difference in the world. And I used to have a belief that you have to make lots of money first before you can make a difference. And I met people who were making a difference while making lots of money. And I was like, oh, okay, so what does that look like for me? And then I saw Lisa Nichols speak and ended up investing $25,000 to work with her for a day. And she kind of was reflecting to me that maybe writing a book, speaking, sharing my story, and helping people could be the path. And she was just seeing how effortlessly she was able to make such an impact. It inspired me to consider it. So I went from an absolute no to maybe, and maybe I've gone through all of this for a reason, and maybe I have a different perspective. So I thought the natural transition, because my business was recruitment, placing executives into NHS or healthcare organizations. I thought, okay, I can go into businesses, because I could see from the outside looking in that there were a few things that they were doing that were not serving the employee, which would help the business turn things around. So if I went from a company culture perspective, then it will allow me to do the work with the individuals, but also be connected to the business and help them turn it around. And I started doing that. And as I was getting results in the company from doing the people work, the leadership team will turn to the money. And I thought, okay, well, they're missing the point. It's because they focused on the people that the money was coming. So why don't I just focus on working with executives? And if I can work with executives and help them transcend their limitations and help them kind of move past the fear-based reactions and help them align to operating from a place of alignment and presence and strength, then everything else in their ether will have a ripple effect. And that's what sort of shifted me, and I started getting really quick results, and I thought, okay, well, maybe my coaches did see something. So it kind of, I couldn't ignore the signs eventually, and I gave in, and it's been the most rewarding thing. And the fear that I have was that, like my family, I would take on all of the burdens of people and I would eventually break down again. And with coaching, it's really not about taking on people's burdens. It's about being a space for them to connect to themselves. So it was me, by allowing myself to actually step into that role, I was able to see that it wasn't anything like I expected it to be. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned something in there, your why, you lost your why. Now, I mean, this is one of the staples for any startup. I know my show is all about shifting, entrepreneurs on the move. That why comes up quite a bit. What would you say if there's anybody listening today that is in that weird funk of they're like, I don't know what my why is. I'm just doing this because I'm doing it. How do I tap back in? Like, Linda did it. That's awesome. Other people are doing it around me. I see everybody else has got a why. What about me? Like, why can't I get my why? Why can't I figure this out?
Yeah, so I think sometimes people try to find their purpose, and that's linked to sort of looking externally to you, like maybe I need to do this and maybe I need to do that. And I kind of went with what felt right. So everyone was telling me to stay in the company, that I will be able to shift past this lull that I was experiencing, and I'll make this business a success. And I tried for 18 months and it didn't. And I did what everyone thought was crazy and walked away from a successful business that was growing, and just, I didn't sell it because I was just done. And then I listened to cues. So I think that your purpose unfolds for you, and if you follow the breadcrumbs of what feels good and what excites you and what expands you, you will eventually click into alignment. It's taken me 4 years to be like, I know that I'm fully aligned. I've come up with this unique process that helps people, but I would have never got here had I been attached to I need to know what my why is, and it needs to look in a certain way, and I did have moments of that where I was comparing myself to others, like, well, they seem to be in alignment. What am I waiting for? Maybe I should do what they're doing. And it never worked. And as soon as I surrendered and was like, actually, what do I love? And what ideas do I have now? And let me try that. And as soon as it's out of alignment, I was okay to let it go. I think sometimes we either get attached to, we are trying something new and we have to make it work, otherwise we're going to look like quitters, or what is everyone else doing, or what does everyone expect of us, instead of what my mum brought me on is turn within. Just keep turning within and checking in and asking yourself questions, and just taking action on whatever feels right, even if it feels crazy, because it will eventually get you to where you need to be in terms of alignment to your purpose.
Now, how do you deal with the doubt? Because you say, okay, that sounds good. I'll just let it unfold over these years and I'll do this stuff. But if, as you're letting it unfold and you're not really sure, it's not a full set foundation, you talk about letting go of stress. And I don't know if this is part of it while you're stepping into that, but how do you handle the doubt and the stress that comes when things aren't working the way you thought they were going to work? Or I put out this game plan and I'm going to do it and it's going to be great. And then you get into it and it's like, well, everything I'm doing, I'm messing up. So,
yeah. So I think I think everyone can relate to this. What we don't see when things seem to be falling apart and not working is how everything is kind of lined up to get us to where we are now. And what I'm very intentional about doing is, like, even looking at depression needed to happen to me in order for me to let go of my way of being, in order for me to step on this transformational journey to become who I am now. I'm constantly looking back as, all right, that business partnership didn't work. What did I learn from that? And for example, there was a business partnership that didn't work. And what I learned was that I didn't feel confident enough to do what I thought that I wanted to do. So I kind of hid behind someone who was already doing it, because I felt more safe with trusting them to move forward, because I didn't have confidence in myself. And within no time, I picked up the work that I thought I did, the skills that I thought I didn't have or wasn't capable of having. And then it became this kind of clash because they weren't dominant in that skill. So what I've realized is that why am I getting, if I choose to get into a business partnership, is it because I'm running away from my insecurity of not wanting to step into something? So we can, every time we look back, we can see a lesson. So each lesson of why something hasn't worked, each, I guess, reflection of why something hasn't worked leads us to a learning that helps expand us to then get us to the next stage. So it's never, and any failure is never in vain. It's not really a failure. It's just you realizing, okay, this isn't in alignment, so I just need to change gear and get in alignment. But I've learned about myself that XYZ needed to happen in order for me to become XYZ. So kind of experiencing life as a journey and taking note of every turn and having no regrets, and kind of being intentional that needed to happen in order for you to get to the next stage is how I deal with doubt. So there are moments where there's a period of like, even now, things kind of go really quickly and a lot of things happen, and then all of a sudden it's calm. And then I'm like, why isn't it happening? And then I realize, actually, no, I need the calm because I'm not ready to, I need to integrate everything that has happened and everything that I've learned and all the growth that I've created to be a little bit more intentional about the next phase of growth. So just constantly being aware that it's not supposed to look like a linear success curve. You wouldn't be able to cope with that. Your brain wouldn't be able to deal with the amount of growth that's required. Sometimes we want something, but we need to become the person that we need to be in order to manage the thing that we want. So that requires a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And choices and all kinds of things. And I know that you had mentioned to me before that when it comes to shifts in life, the past, you would handle your shifts differently than you do today, which, you're the same person, but you have done a transformation, like literally transformation. So how does that work? If somebody's listening today and they're thinking, I just make bad choices or my shifts, just like you're talking about here, like, how can we do this? Everything leads to our end and obviously moving ourselves forward. But how did you have a stark difference that there's a different way that you're shifting through your changes now?
Yeah, I think in the past, my decisions were mainly fear-based, and I had a lot of I shoulds, I have to, because I put myself in this position that I was the provider for my family and they needed me. I pretty much took away their power and gave myself significance because it's the way that I felt loved. So a lot of what I was doing was based on survival. If I do this, then they will love me. And if I take care of them, then I'm a good person. So it wasn't an authentic desire. It was more from but I didn't know it at the time. Right. And what has shifted was, as a result of doing that, I had a lot of resentment. It was like, no one appreciates me and I'm taken for granted. And I was sort of full victim mode. So if you're complaining a lot and you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're probably making decisions that are not necessarily aligned to what you want to do, but what you think you should have to do based on external circumstances. The shift now is that I check in with me first. So if my emotions are a good gauge of whether I'm coming from fear or I'm coming from love. If I'm coming from love, if it feels relaxed, if my body is not tensed up, then I know that the decision is something that I want to do. And even if it sounds crazy to the rest of the world, even if it's going to make me look stupid, even if I question myself, but I feel like it's the thing that I'm supposed to do, I just jump in and I just figure the rest out after. And usually what tends to happen is that might be getting a little bit woo-woo, but the universe tends to conspire to make it work. It's just waiting for me to take the leap, and every time it works out. So if you feel that you make bad decisions, I would challenge you to look at where you're coming from and what's driving those decisions, because if they're not working out, they're usually not in alignment to what's best for your higher purpose.
Wow. So many nuggets in that. I mean, it's incredible. The work you're doing, I can only imagine what you're able to help people come through. Now, you said effortless. I want to talk about effortless and less stress, because when we think about like starting, these are executives, they're in their business. Most of them might be, maybe you can talk about what are they dealing with? What do you see as like the big problems? What are they facing? And then how are you able to bring this effortlessness and less stress to what is seemingly can be very taxing, time consuming, whatever they might be dealing with?
Yeah, sure. So with executives, I think one of the again, kind of what I've spoken about, there is the higher up you get in your career or in your business, the more perceived pressure an individual puts on themselves on how they're supposed to be. So then the space to be your authentic self kind of reduces and reduces and reduces, and sometimes is invisible. So what I find with executives is that they're one way at work and they're one way at home. And I'm like, so you've got a split personality, you're one person, so how can we integrate that? And it manifests in ways like, so if a executive, a director wants to become a CEO of a corporation, it's how can, firstly, do I believe in myself to be able to get there? Who am I trying to impress? And it becomes this kind of burden of all the things that I have to do and how I have to show up and how my team need to show me, rather than I am where I am and I need to identify the gap between where I am and where I need to be. And I need to be authentic about that, because then I can get help from both my team and my higher ups in order for me to get there. So a lot of it is unpacking and peeling away all of the levels of inauthenticity that's having them be stressed, because the stress is it's a choice. It doesn't that might invoke some triggers with people that are listening, because sometimes we take things on that we think we have to take on, but once we actually break it down and start looking at it, we are putting additional responsibilities onto ourselves that don't need to be put onto ourselves. We're not asking for help. We're not delegating effectively. We're not empowering people to be able to take ownership so that we can release, because again, just like me being in my family and playing this role that where they were completely dependent on me, I felt a sense of significance. So that then creates a self-inflicted stress, because I feel like I have to do all of these things. The same thing applies to executives. It's like my team can't see me as weak, and my team can't this, and to the stakeholders and the investors, I have to be a certain way. So all of these are prescribed, I guess, perceptions on self that then create this extra layer of stress. But once all of that has evaporated and you just deal with what's so, then there's no stress, because it's just, okay, what's a priority? What needs to happen? What steps do I need to take in order to move towards the goals that I have? And it's just a case of taking action instead of being overwhelmed with everything else that you're creating for yourself. So,
wow. I think it's so interesting how you unpack that whole thing, because that is a loaded question. And to be able to kind of bring that to just, these are choices executives and founders are making, and there are solutions. I think that's the beauty, is seeing, I mean, what is your mindset on this ability for us to handle any situation? Because I'd love to get into your mind. I've got my own, like what I'm working on is anything is possible, but truly like from the core, not just verbally saying it. So maybe you can give a little insight on your mindset, how you think about what, when you look at these things, because obviously you said just break it down. You might be taking on more than you need to. But what's your mindset on that?
I believe I have the same mindset in terms of anything is possible, but I can't be in that mindset if I'm stressed. So every single human being has made a decision in their childhood that makes them believe that they're not enough. And this is what really kind of drives us to operate from a place of survival, because this decision, mine is I'm not valued. And my clients, I take my clients through a process to figure out what this limiting belief is that's running their life. And it could be, I'm not respected, I'm not acknowledged, I'm not supported, whatever the decision is. is it manifests in three ways. We go through life looking for evidence of it. So we could be sitting in the boardroom and someone lifts up an eyebrow because they're having a thought, and we think that they're disrespecting us, or they're not acknowledging us, or whatever the case may be, because we're looking at life through this filter. And the reason that happens is because the trauma that happened in childhood that allowed you to come to that decision, you've now created a pattern or a way of being or an identity to protect you from it. So if your mind is designed to keep you protected and is constantly looking for evidence so that you know how to operate from a defense mechanism, then it gives you this perceived sense of safety. But it comes to a point in your life where it stops serving you. So it creates all of your strengths because you've learned how to protect yourself from it, but it can only get you so far. So then in order to get to the next level of life, you need to be able to let it go. So the other way that it manifests is that when we don't see evidence of it, we manufacture situations to prove it. So so for example, I had a client who had a team, and his decision is that he's not supported. And he's always saying about his team that they don't support him and they don't show up for him. And then when we dug deeper, we realized that he's not clear to them on what showing up for him looks like. So he's setting them up to fail so that he can be right to be not supported. And then when he is supported, this is the third way that it shows up. When someone receives support or receives love or receives value or receives acknowledgement, they push it away because they don't know how to run their survival mechanism if they believe that it's true that they are supported. So the way that you can shift out of this survival mode in order to be in that creative space and see opportunities and see possibilities and see solutions in the midst of challenge, you have to be able to short circuit this automatic reaction to life that no one cares about you, no one loves you, like everything is tiered up against you. And once you're able to see, oh, my mind's just doing what it's doing based on my past beliefs and I'm not going to engage in it, you start taking the wheel of your life, you start steering it into more presence. And when you're in more presence, you can see opportunities and possibilities everywhere.
Wow. Amazing. I know that's going to touch so many people. I mean, it's gold what you're sharing right now, for anybody going through those situations. Thank you so much for just like giving us so much today, so much richness. And I mean, I can't believe we already are having to wrap up because we could talk for another, so many more hours. But I'd love to ask you 2 more questions and then we'll, close up. Thank you again. So the first one is, how do you keep shifting forward? So we talk about shifting in life and business. What keeps you shifting forward?
I live on the edge of my comfort zone. If I am comfortable, then I'm not growing. So I am aware, I use my emotions as a guide to let me know where I've come to the edge of resistance within myself. So if I'm being triggered by something or someone, then I know it's something I need to look at. So right now for me, the one area that I haven't shifted yet is my relationships. I have been single for 10 years. So now this is an area that I'm looking at in terms of what is scaring me about being fully vulnerable in that area, and how can I put myself out there and throw myself into situations that will allow me to crack open this resistance so that I can attract somewhat the partner of my dreams. So, and then once that happens, there'll be another area of resistance that will be obviously present to me. So that's how I continue to shift. I look at, okay, well, once I resolve something and everything is flourishing in that area, what can I feel is not in alignment, or what can I see that I'm being triggered by, and how can I put myself in that situation so that I can release it? Because I've had enough experience to know that every time I release a layer of resistance, there is so much more goodies and like juice on the other side, in terms of the level of abundance I feel, the level of fulfillment I feel, the level of vitality I have in life. So I'm constantly looking for the pain so that I can go through it to get to the other side, because there's so much more freedom and calm and presence and peace on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes just looking at what we sometimes don't see the other side. People say the grass is greener on the other side, but we just have to go through a little bit of thorns to
Exactly.
to get
Exactly.
through to the amazing green. But
Hmm.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's an incredible way to keep releasing and keep shifting forward all the time, all throughout life, not thinking that it's going to be perfect anytime. It's going to
Hmm.
keep shifting. The second thing I'd love to ask is, what do you wish everybody knew about what you do? I know there's a lot of people that will share, I do this, I do that, but what do you really wish everybody knew?
What do I wish? I think there's a myth out there that transformation takes time and humans are really complicated. And I wish that everyone knew that transformation is just a decision away. And it's simple, but it's hard because all you're doing is fighting against yourself. And that's the hardest thing you can do. But outside of that, it's super simple. If you make the decision, I've had people who have become completely different human beings in 2-3 months just because they've been committed to pushing past all of their beliefs and their resistances. So whatever it is that you're going through and whatever is happening in your life and whatever challenges you're facing, it's just life reflecting who you are. So if you're not happy with it, it's just a decision to change it. And if you change you, your reality will change, and it doesn't need to take a long time.
Woo, right? Woo, what is possible? I hope everybody listening today, you have definitely been able to soak this up. And Linda, if they're thinking, oh my God, I need to work with her, I want to find out what she's doing because she's just speaking to me. I know you've spoke to me today too, like so many good things. So how do they get in touch with you? How do they find you? How do they follow you? How do they hear more?
I'm on LinkedIn. I need to be better at social media, but LinkedIn is Linda Bagwu. I'm on Instagram at Linda Bagwu. I am working on a website, but I've been doing weekly women's circles in Tulum, which is where I live, where a group of women come together and I coach them. And what I'm able to do is quickly figure out people's patterns within 5 minutes and show them why they're producing all of the results they're producing in every area of their lives. So because of the success of that, I'm actually launching this week a bi-weekly bi-weekly circle. Everyone's invited, including men, and it will be an opportunity for people to kind of with a kind of low investment get a taste of the coaching that I do, learn from other people's coaching and help them understand exactly why they're producing the results they're producing, so they can find information and testimonials on that by going to coaching.lindaandbagwu.com/coaching circle. Yeah, those are the ways.
Awesome. Maybe I'll get that link from you and we'll add it in the description below so you can find that and get connected. Linda, you're an inspiration. I am so glad you're doing the work you're doing and you listen to yourself, you push through that resistance and now touching many, many people's lives, and may it be many, many to come for many years.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a really fun conversation, and yeah, I hope it adds value, and I'm grateful to be on here. Thank you.
The pleasure's mine, and thank you for those kind words. And we're going to get out of here today. So for all those listening, keep on the move.